and we find that the three levels of humidity, the wettest level correlated to the positive one, which is indicating the same purpose, wet conditions. And the driest, the third one, the driest one here in our isotopic values, correlated to the negative one, which give an indication to the driest period, and the second one intermediate between the wettest and the driest periods. And I think I listen a voice here. It's a voice of Miss Brozarbini. She said, indeed, Muhammad, you are right. I heard about the French Revolution at 1789. Immediately before this year, there was a lot of crop failures, famines, and depression in economy. And here we can find a historical photo for French woman waiting for bread, and that is the same our isotopic gives. So, coming to the analysis of water, we have here, I analyzed the drip water, the delta O of drip water, and I compared it with the rainwater from Ailey, my colleague, and I find that the curve of drip water is stable and no seasonality signature in drip water. Correlating to the large variation of rainwater, we can explain this as the vadose zone above the curve is well mixed when the different type of porosity, primary, secondary, tertiary, are mixed and store the whole months and give it after, not in the same time. So, our conclusion come like this, and our recommendation, the Brozarbini stalagmite provide a valuable use for both oxygen and carbon, where we can use oxygen as a rainfall amount proxy and carbon as a vegetation amount proxy. The 200 years from 1600 to 1800 show a clear variability in rainfall amount and vegetation intensity, where we can observe three driest periods before 1610 and around 1710 and around 1780, and a remarkable wet period between 1725 to 1770. Our Brozarbini stalagmite show a high sensitivity to short periods of climate, since we can record a crop failures, the crop failures from our carbon isotope before the French Revolution. The Brozarbini stalagmite grows dynamic, depending on regional climate forced by NLO, where we can find the inverse correlation or the inverse relation. The absence of seasonal signature in drip water of delta O explain the well mixing of vadose zone above our cave. So, we haven't here seasonality in calcite, and we want to investigate that. So our recommendation going in two directions. The first direction to confirm and improve our interpretation by applying different types of studies like petrographic studies, and use other proxies for the same purpose of humidity and aridity like trace element ratios and strontium isotopes. And the second direction going to get the transfer function by performing extensive monitoring programs for rainfall, soil, cave air, and drip water, and modern calcite. Finally, I want to thank Ms. Brozarbini, and she said, you are welcome, Muhammad, but there still is a lot to be said. Thank you for all.
Thank you, Mohammed, for your presentation. Nice and time. We start with the questions, and I think I start with the jury who is least involved.
Thank you, Mohammed. I think that was a really entertaining presentation and really useful thesis to read. I do have a few questions. You mentioned that the rainwater is not directly related to what you find in the cave. And you also show that within 4 years of data for this rainwater, in the cave you see no... 3 years? 2 years. 2 years you see no variation in the isotopes in the cave. So how do you think is the actual data you're recording reacting to what's happening at the surface? And is there a delay time between what's happening at the surface and what you're recording?
We can state that, but I split. I did my work on the annually scale, so I have it monthly scale, and here I correlated that months, and I find no seasonality. But if the yearly amount of water different from year to a year, so the total amount of water different from 2 years to a year, we can find this difference here. I am not working, I didn't work on the seasonality in my research. I work on the annually signature.
But do you think that the signal would come directly in the cave, or would there be a delay as the water has to move?
I think it will be delayed for 1 year.
Okay. Coming back on that dating, because you're really interpreting on a yearly basis
Yes.
your data. You interpolated the age from the top to the bottom of your core. What would be the possible error on the exact age of each samples?
It's a difficult. It's not simple way to say I will interpolate a linear interpolation between 2 points, but you can see in my correlation, in my validation, I got a confirmation to my interpretation from a years here. If you look for here for this period, you can find I correlated in a simple way, and I find that a confirmation from different documents for my interpretation.
Yeah.
So I should check, and I checked. It gives a good.
So that's a bit a circular reason. Yes.
It's a simple, and
would there be another method you can apply?
Yes, uranium cerium dating, but it's not a cheap thing to do.
And then the growth rate of these.
I calculated for this as a main growth rate.
Mm-hmm. And can you count also the different layers?
No, I didn't do that.
But is it possible?
I think yes.
Okay. I'm into volcanology, and we have that hypothesis, and that actually the 1782 years is a big eruption.
Yes,
and there's a large amount of literature saying that eruption has caused the French Revolution and caused a drop in crop failure.
Yeah.
How can you move that out?
Yes. Here, in this one, if you say, I think for the lake eruption, if the extension of that event go maximum, it will go to 2 years. And we have here 7 years of crop failures and 7 years of failure. And we have here also an indication to a dry period with the same period, the same crop failures. And in this year, I think, at March, there is a published paper about this. It's for Rosani, and it says, no, we think Franklin have been mistaken for this point, and we think NOO, I mentioned here, North Atlantic oscillation is a major control climate factor for crop failures and dry condition. It's not lakey.
And do we know actually what's controlling these NAO index? Could an eruption actually have an influence?
Yes, till now I explained the mechanism now, and that is for the time being, that is what known about NAO index. No one can know the reason, the real reason about North Atlantic oscillation. But this is the mechanism of it, and you can find this in the paleoclimatology side.
I was really surprised that you rule out quite quickly the fact that the carbonate rock, which has also probably an isotopic signature, it does not really have an influence on what you're getting in the cave. So how can you explain that? Because the carbon and oxygen elements.
The dead carbon from the bedrock. No influence. I think the influence of dead carbon calculated for a time ago by Jonte. He said about this maximum, it's 15%.
How can you say? Can they say that?
He said the maximum carbon can come from the bedrock is about 15% of this carbon.
Okay, and the rest of the carbon was coming from the soil.
Yes.
Okay. maybe for the future here, you visually correlating these NL index and wheat price, which is already quite convincing. But do you think about more quantitative methods you could use to make that point stronger?
I want, first of all, I want to learn. I want to be a climate a modeler, because you know modeling is not easy science to learn. I did here analytical lab work, and I correlated as I can, but it's not my specialty. But for my future, I hope I will be a climate modeler also to be integrate my knowledge.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you.